Welcome back. We're starting a new series where we're going to be talking to some amazing, very creative, very innovative designers, different professions, but they all will have something very notable to say. And I'm looking forward to digging into these personalities, bringing them to you firsthand, and allowing us both, all of us, to have an insight into their world. Joining me in the first episode is Jowyn Wong. Now, Jowyn is responsible for a lot of the gorgeous designs coming out of the supercar and hypercar world today. He's done some excellent work. Jowyn and I go back quite a bit, where I was running the McLaren design studio, and I brought in Jowyn as an intern designer, and Jowyn has never looked back since then. He's only gone from strength to strength. He's out on his own now, making his name for himself in the design industry, and he's doing an excellent job at it. He's a deep thinker, he's a hard worker, and he's a super talented designer. And it's a real pleasure to bring him here to you today to catch a bit of insight into his character, his accomplishments, and where he's going. So, hi, Joe. Welcome back. Really good to hook up with you. It's been quite a while. I'm looking forward to this new series we're starting called Designer to Designer. I want to format it in a way that makes it really interesting for people to get into the inside thinking of how you approach design, what's coming next, all those kind of things that are interesting that people don't usually hear about. And it's going to be just fun chatting because we know each other pretty well. You know, what makes Joe Joe, and how you've gotten to this amazing level so quickly.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Yeah,
Very honored to be on your show. It's been time, hasn't it? I mean, I remember really getting into the industry was, well, the first time getting in the industry, I ended up working with you. I mean, you were my boss at McLaren.
And you've come a long way, baby.
A very long way. So really having graduated from Huddersfield University, where I studied transportation design, and then going on into McLaren and really learning or acquiring that industry experience was just mind blown. I really learned, in like 6 months, I learned more than my 4 years there at university. It was a completely different ball game. And from then on, went to work for Apollo Automobile. And then since then, we did some really crazy things, and that allowed me to gain incredible experience, not just with the design, but in terms of management. I was the only designer, and we have my partner who is a alias modeler with me. So there was only two of us in the whole kind of design operation. And since the start of the Apollo journey, we collected all kinds of experiences and everything to do with homologation, manufacturing, tooling, and obviously design. Performance aspects, aerodynamics, all of these things, safety as well is a really important thing. And soon after that, went to Tomaso. So it's all under kind of the similar or the same sort of like investors and everything. Applied the same techniques, what we learned with the Apollo, and obviously with what learned from McLaren in the early days. And now here, I have my own design consultancy now called Wind Design. And yeah, we've got some really fantastic projects happening.
That kind of journey usually takes a designer a lifetime, if ever, to get there. And you've pretty much compressed it
Pretty
into
lucky, I would say.
such a short period. When you look at design,
Mm.
especially car design, what do you look at? What do you read? How do you see a design? What are the qualities of design that make you see design in the way that you do?
Yeah, I think definitely for me, my outlook on design in general has changed a lot. Within the last over 10 years of my experience now in the industry. I really don't see the design at face value. So I begin to see why the engineers have done this. The manufacturing has allowed this to happen, or restricted this to happen. I can see what they were trying to do, but were unable to capture some elements, or maybe capture some elements beautifully. And so my eyes on design now is it involves a lot of these faculties of of design process in general. So I would imagine how designers were sketching first in the beginning, and then how the engineers were working on, and the synergies between them, and then the clay modeling side, and the virtual developments and everything like that, and obviously the final things, which is the homologation and manufacturing. So I would see where they were trying to do and what things were compromised because of these regulations or regulatory factors. But essentially, what I look for, let's say, in design is it's just that magnetism to it. There's something about that car, whether it's beautiful or ugly, but there's just some attraction about it that kind of stands out from the crowd, and that for me is a hit. It can be anything. It can be something simple as details of the lighting details on a car, for example. That would be, I would recognize that vehicle just for that feature alone. I'd be like, oh wow, those lights are beautifully done. So not really necessarily the whole package, but some details are outstanding in some of these cars now in modern days.
You've got, I mean, the thing is, you've been able to sort of put your own style, your own stamp on the design, because you get stuck with a company and you have to kind of adhere. Although you're always pushing the limits and pushing it forward, you're always trying to keep that special philosophy in mind of the company or their history. But are you developing? Do you think you're developing your own look, your own style?
What we do is we, I try to be the medium, the channeler for our client. So I'm not a dictator. I don't want to dictate their vision in a certain way or a certain aspect. It's like, allow me to be your hands, and I'll take all of my experiences and try to make this the most beautiful thing that you're looking for.
You say that you're setting up a certain philosophy or inspiration for your designs?
Philosophy is really just about the service to others, in my opinion. So that's the greatest philosophy for me, is how do we take what's around us or be inspired by what's around us, and to be able to serve that in a form of a vehicle or a product that helps inspire and that helps improve the lives of the people that I'm working with, and ultimately for the world in the end.
You're a small setup, obviously, so you don't have a huge team working around you, but you're delivering world-class design. And in the biggest studios, we have sources of the kind of tools that you cannot ask for better tools. Obviously, it's quite expensive and everything to kind of incorporate that into your studio. What are you using to achieve such high levels of design that you are? That's always wondered me a little bit.
So since the beginning days or the early days of Apollo, the budget wasn't that great. And, it was out of necessity that, I had to do something here. There was no interior designer, there's no wheel designer, there's none of these things. I'm the only guy. And, how do we, using technology, how do we use technology to create those assets that eventually, okay, I can do this, but I'm going to cut, days and weeks by applying this, digital system, and that will compound over over a couple of years. We can save a lot of time and get a lot more work done. And so generally, our turnover, just for the two of us in wind design, is really just we try to turn over a car every year, and that's just with the two of us. And obviously, we have a good network now of people that we've made relationship with in the industry. So we're able to find people that can radically execute things that we want without all the, the convoluted discussions and meetings and all of these things. It's just like, okay, this is what we want. This is what it's going to look like. There's, I need a feasibility report. Is this okay to manufacture it? And if not, tell me why. So building an intense network of, digital systems and, greatly benefited how we were able to achieve so much in so little time. And I think people now are really starting to understand the effects of this, with all the home working and working from home sort of ideology, and being mobile as well. And these are the things that I've been working with for the last 7 years, is having that mobile office with me, and to be able to go wherever and to see whoever I want, and I can do anything now on an iPad. And that's pretty much it. And I never see my alias model ever. We live 300 miles apart. We had to use all kinds of, we're testing all kinds of things. What messaging system was the best? What cloud system was the best? Which one was the fastest? And integrating all these systems and really creating this digital network so to speak.
Why is that freedom that newfound freedom, I guess, that you have now, because you're able to work from home and digitally connect with all the engineering team and with your rest of your team? Why is that important?
I think it's important because it forces people to, to go outside their comfort zone. Like people expect to be in an office, they expect to be, everything is kind of like, oh, I mean, for example, in McLaren, everything's like, I've got my buddies around me, I can go for a coffee whenever I want. But a lot of this, like working from home, really does teach you that, or forces you to know about self-management. You have to manage your own thing, you have to manage your own time, and these things, it's quite challenging, because for me, in the earlier days, I was definitely working like nonstop. It was like 12, 13 hours a day, because I was covering different time zones and everything, from the East, and then we have some guys in Germany, and then Italy, and some in the US. So, I was trying to do all these things at once, but, ultimately that will burn you out. So it's an incredible experience to just live that way for a while and to test your limits to see how far you can go.
Yeah, there's one thing, you're right. There's one thing about camaraderie and being able to, that daily being in touch with your colleagues and on the physical model, on the physical design process, face to face. But that last year has really moved us into another perspective, another level, another huge shift in design. And I've noticed it exactly like you have. You have to be able to work, whether you like it or not. You have to be able to work digitally now. And I've always feared that if we go completely digital, or as digital as we have been, I'm hesitant that we're or just not too sure about how we're going to keep that connection that designers have to the physical product, as it goes through the maturing process of design, because that's really important that we keep that. Are you fearing that? Because a lot of your products have to be built, you want to be by your baby as it's getting built, right?
Yeah.
That personal
Yeah,
relationship.
we can open a can of worms in this kind of topic. Yeah, but yeah, really, I mean, for certainly in my experience, it was really that deadline that dictated that we didn't have a choice. It's like, we don't have the luxury to stand by a clay model and, hey, let's move a line up 2 millimeter today, and then, come in tomorrow, oh, let's move it back down 3 millimeters. We don't have the time for that kind of luxury. So for me and our team, and generally, we have to execute. We got to hit a certain deadline. We need to make it for a certain show. It's like, if we can't decide, this or that, okay, just go with it in between. That's usually the perfect thing to do. You'll find the compromise, in the between. So that's usually how I adopt my methods now. If I can't decide on something, or if there's a line is too high or too low, I'm just like in the middle, it's fine.
But how do you visualize that? Once you do it, you don't know if you're really improving it or making it worse. It's kind of like, how do you physically feel that you've done the right thing? By obviously.
I think as designers or as creators, you really need to have that asset, of being able to visualize exactly, as you see it's going to turn out. Those are, I think, really important skills. And I've been around cars and stuff all my life, and I have like loads of car models and everything around me when I was younger and everything. So I guess for me, it was really easy to understand, how where where the positioning of the lines would be is the right place. You kind of intuitively just know. For example, the Apollo is just a crazy bunch of lines, but they all have this continuity with it. It connects to something at the end. The points detach, and then they flow into a certain area of the car. Everything is connected at one point. Even though when you first see it, this is the thing. It has this drama, but then when you go close, oh, everything is starting to connect. It tells a story of this.
Yeah, but the kind of designs that I know you for, which are that very sensual designs that make sense when you look at them. I mean, you've gone through the whole gamut, the whole range spectrum of hard design and soft design with what you've done up to now. You get some designs are a bit more edgy and some are a bit softer, but you have to basically feel comfortable with what you're designing before you actually see it, in real life before it actually stands in front of you. You're walking around it. What current technology are you using to visualize these products?
Yeah, so usually, we start off with just a visualizer, just on the screen, 2D, can change color, we can match reflection, we can change the environment just to see how that surface is behaving in multiple, lighting scenarios or in the city or on a desert, so we can simulate all of these things. But now, the ability now is to able to transfer that, but into a virtual reality headset. And in my experience, if your intuition is really that strong in terms of visualizing in your mind already, the virtual headset, that's just a bonus. And then that will really then be a confirmation of what you feel instinctively is then correct.
Yeah, yeah, saves a ton of work too, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
And money.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I find that we have to keep up. It's kind of like doctors when you're studying something and you graduate and then you're in the field for 5, 10 years. You still have to keep studying because all these new
yeah,
technologies coming along. If you don't keep up with it, you're just going to be old school for the rest of your life, basically.
We're all still students of the universe, and as technology is or our technological capabilities are increasing every year, we have to really take advantage of this. And I can really see, if we displace ourselves maybe 20, 30 years time in the future, like we're not even going to be the ones who's designing. We're going to be the ones that are kind of maybe having an influence on the final result, but a lot of that heavy work is going to be done like, AI algorithms, and, you'll have this machine that's going to churn out, 100 proposals for, I don't know, like Volkswagen or something. And that, you have a few guys or directors that are thinking, okay, this one's going to do. And then we'll just refine it a little bit more, right? So you cut out so much manpower and labor, you save the company so much money. And if you understand things like businesses and economics, it's really going to go that way. And we can see this happening with things like clay modeling, and this transition is really going to accelerate because there is the demand, the need. If you can save yourself X amount a year, you times that by 20 years, you're going to save up millions. This is the logic behind business.
Yeah, but I don't know. That sounds cool and fast, and providing a lot of things to the market. Maybe that nobody's asking for, but at the same time, it seems like you're turning over the designs fairly rapidly in a sense that it almost loses the that value that something can last a while. It's almost like planned obsolescence. After a year, you're going to toss it
yeah,
away and buy something else just because it's so easy to replace it with something else.
It is. It absolutely is. In the day, in kind of like these days of our, digital consumption with social media and stuff, is the things that we put out for the public, it's so quickly consumed, like give it a week or two, and it kind of just phases out afterwards, right? And then comes the next project sort of thing. And then, but these guys have been working on it for like, 1, 2, 3 years or something, spending, all these late nights and all the sweat and all the tears, creating this, fabulous thing. And then, it gets on the social media, people love it, people hate it. And then, okay.
Your cars, at least, when you've done the P72 and the Apollos, they all have this almost common, almost curvaceous common design language that works really well. Where is that moving to? Because now I know you've been working on the Neuron, not on automotive project. That's almost in a different direction. It's a bit.
Yeah. So in the case of Naran, it was really kind of like extracting that vision from Amir, down to the T. I really just acted as the medium or the channel for him to exercise his wish to be this car designer. There's something that he had always dreamed of, and I want to fulfill that for him rather than take it away from him. I wanted Wind Design to be adding to that experience of this whole car design journey, and be able to do the best experiences I can in service of him. So the Naran took us in a direction where really it was the just kind of the expression of Amir himself, and we were able to use all the tools and everything to commit to him and make that thing happen for him. It's I wouldn't say it's a Joe Wong designed car, it's definitely an Amir design car, and that's what represents him. And this is what we were doing for clients such as Amir, um, exercising his will to create and to be that car designer, for that length of time.
I mean, it takes balls to do what you've done, jump straight into the deep end, and you notice that a lot of, I mean, when I started out, everybody sort of mentalized themselves towards the ultimate thing is getting in as an employee to a car company and having that as your career. But you've gone in a different direction, which is absolutely admirable from my viewpoint. It takes, like I said, balls to do what you did, go out on your own. How did you do that? I mean, it's like putting everything on the line, and going out and making a name for yourself, and you're just going from one, success to the next. It looks like success breeds success, but it takes definitely courage to do what you've done.
Yeah, it's kind of, for me, I've always been like this kind of non-conformist style person. Is I want to do challenging things, and I really believe that the bigger the challenge, the easier everything else is, and the faster that everything else can develop and you can get on with. So really, it almost seems like every year or two I try to like raise those standards again and not be comfortable in my position, to put myself in a position of discomfort and find a new challenge, and I think there's something about that keeps me going.
Absolutely, I know what you mean. It's
Yeah.
you get one thing behind you, then you're looking up to the next biggest challenge, and then you're on this insane climb that is addictive to do something better than you did before.
Yeah, it's like this insatiable appetite just to keep going for the stars or something. Yeah.
Talking about stars, where are you going? Because I know we have a common path at the moment, kind of thing. That at some point it's going to probably collide in a positive energy explosion thing. But
I hope so.
yeah. Can you enlighten me a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I kind of created a startup in the pursuit of space technologies, looking at everything from near Earth orbit to and beyond. So interstellar vehicles or energy propulsions, and just taking everything that I've learned from the processes of not just automotive design, but the whole entire faculty of what makes a car. We have all the manufacturing, all the production, all the homologation, the safety, the design, the best of materials that requires this insane longevity for the customers. Like, 2 years, I can't fall apart, because, in that case. So we have these insane level of tests in materials, and this is something that I have a lot of experience in, and a lot of network in these areas, and also in the manufacturing side. So I thought, okay, let's maybe like let's set the bar like even more higher and see how far we can go. So and the whole point of doing this was really, the mission is to transcend human race or the human species into the universe. And there I see a completely new economy. Things are going to be, probably an explosion, maybe a revolution of fourth revolution of our kind of modern history. And I just think that economy alone is going to benefit, so many lives here on Earth. It's also going to trigger, let's say, a new vision for society in general, just to go beyond. And I think people like Elon is doing a great job of that. The community is amazing. I would say the space community is so inviting and it's so warm and so welcoming. It's like there's absolutely no ego in the space community. It's really just that bigger vision that is bigger than all of us individually, but it encapsulates all of us collectively. So that was the motive behind this startup.
Yeah, I found that incredible. I mean, it blew me away when I read that part that you're into that side of it. I mean, I always know that we think forward, but that's like out in that's breaking new boundaries. Definitely.
Yeah, it's to see how much steam I can get on it. But I'm really determined, accelerating or raising human consciousness awareness in general. And I think space economy is a really good, or the space industry is a really good way to do this, and to bring more unity in societies, to to reach for the stars and develop projects, or be involved in projects and develop products that it's just going to benefit everybody in general.
What do you see as the kind of things that inspire you to keep that creativity, that hunger going?
Let's say that for the bigger picture as a whole is, what can I do? What can I create? What kind of foundation is going to lay that's basically going to be a benefit for everyone else around us. Well, what kind of foundation can we now lay as creators to be able to, develop a place or build a place where people can find a home and when people can unify towards a singular vision, for the benefit of the greater society in general. So people really inspire me. I think the planet really inspires me to, taking care or being accountable for what we do as humans here on planet Earth. Having that accountability to, keep improving, this strive to just do better and better and better and look after our home at the same time. And also, me and you are like complete nature freaks anyway. I found a lot of my inspiration in nature as well. So, nature has a solution for pretty much everything, has a perfect balance of its ecosystem. So, I find a lot of beauty, I find a lot of inspiration from that as well. How do we create something that is absolutely efficient? You take something from the ground and it returns to the ground sort of mentality. And this is what nature does best. And when we talk about the forms, this is what it also does best, this biological sort of vehicle. These animals, they're built to perform, right? They thrive in their environments. And these are the things that really do and kind of inspiring. And I know that there's this trend about, going towards this, like what you said in a few episodes ago about things looking like fridges on wheels. Yeah, there's hyper minimalism approach to cars or car design where they kind of look like accessories to computers and games consoles and stuff. But I think they have their place as well. But I can't really say I find that much inspiration from that kind of design language. But it'd be fun to experiment in that. But I will probably look at some rocky cliffs or things like that to find that inspiration.
How do you see it as being important that each company kind of keeps their own identity, because with this shift towards digital, and I'm not, I don't want people to think or anybody think I'm against it. I'm just concerned that we're going to end up with too much sameness, if you want to put it that way, in design, and we have to look towards things that kind of keep the identity. How do you see that going now? I mean, BMW's made a radical jump. There are other companies coming out that kind of look like other companies' products and things. So
yeah, I think it does. It certainly does reach a point. What we need really in the industry. We need a radical revamp of the regulatory factors. Like we've been working with the same kind of ECE, TUV regulations for so long, and technology has surpassed us so much. We're now having, for what I do, especially for the hypercar sort of segment, we're working to the millimeter almost because everything is so low, it's so shrink wrap, it's so compact. And there's also all these other requirements such as aerodynamic and performance requirements that are required. So we really have to carve this thing down to the millimeter. But then at the same time, you really have to be creative where you can find loopholes that bypass some of these regulations that just don't make any sense at all. So I think a radical revamp in regulation is needed in order to bring about a new era of automotive design. And I think this is why people are kind of getting bored of it and jumping onto things like, future mobility projects, micromobility, eVTOL, is a new challenge. It's not the same lines over and over again. It's the same package. It's the same kind of like hard points for safety. The structural pillars need to be, this thick and whatever. It's only recently we've only started to say yes to things like replacing the side mirrors and using cameras instead. So, if they can really focus on just revising the whole book, which is like this thick, and really talk about how we can use or get people on board that understand the applications of technology, we can probably design cars that are absolutely amazing and stunning.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a lot of it is this trend now towards electrics, and not only on the obviously the propulsion side, but also the interior. Everything's becoming, less manual, more digitalized, and eventually autonomous. Although I don't really believe in level five. It may come, it may not. But at the same time, for us, isn't it? Would you not agree? It's important to keep the emotion in the vehicle. That sort of we drive cars because we like to drive kind of approach.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons, or one of the primary reasons why we're car designers in the first place, right? Is to really produce this beautiful work of art, and sharing this with the world and the people that want to buy it and buy it. And for us, so I think in the highly specialized segments, so that ones are the hypercars, the Pagani's, Koenigsegg's, and McLarens and Ferraris. They will always have this sensuality in the form factor for sure. But like you say, as we progress into this kind of EV world, everything is kind of going to flatline. We're going to have very similar performance metrics. We're going to have very similar battery performance. The charging cycles, and maybe a new package, maybe not, because of the way the batteries are laid out and the motors are positioned. Maybe we can get away from this mid-engine kind of layout and do something new. But then, that's going to spiral into another trend, and everyone's going to do the same thing.
How are we going to keep that emotional factor though in the design?
Yeah, I think, I think really, for me, definitely, I would like to see more, let's say, human-made elements in the car. So craftsmanship, I think, is a very important thing. This is something that the digital side can replicate, 1,000, a million times better than what the human can do. But it lacks that soul, it lacks that human energy that went into, crafting and making such an item, or, a part of the car, for example. So maybe we can see very small segments where things like that are still thriving, because people, it's like a work of art. It becomes literally art, it becomes a painting, because it's all handmade. So I think those niches will definitely remain, and if not, they'll probably get, let's say, even more sought after, because there's that human element into producing these cars, makes them more valuable.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's where designers start really coming into their own because, although it almost sounds like we're going to need designers less in the future because it's becoming so standard, the practice of design, that designers are going to be the ones that really make the difference in giving you that edge to your company, or that difference, or that USP to your company, because that's what sells. I mean, otherwise we're just delivering one main product to the market, smaller or bigger, but it's basically, losing what we have today, which is what concerns me, is that emotional connection that you have with your vehicle. It's much more than a product, And do you see supercars disappearing in the future because all this shift to electric? Like you said, the performance is the parameters and the end results of the electrics are going to deliver cars that are just, all of them are just going to be way too good for us and too capable, and so you kind of lose that element. How do you see? It interests me because the world of supercars is based around nobody needs them, they want them,
Yeah.
But suddenly, a lot of the factors that make supercars are probably going to be going out of fashion with the new generation of guys.
For sure, I think so. And then we have, like, such difficult, EU regulations for the kind of the emissions regulations. So, that's why we're turbocharging everything and putting these like silencers and the catalytic converters, and they sound like crap these days. The new supercars, because they're all muffled and they don't have that symphony anymore. They don't have that range of crescendos or that melody in the exhaust note anymore. That's for sure. And I think maybe for very exclusive hypercars, there will remain a market for this, because, like you said, people still want this kind of thing. But this is according to, let's say, our generation. So let's say if we skip maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 generations ahead, where, let's say, a lot of the new guys have their lives immersed, like fully immersed in this digital sort of environment. Everyone everyone's on their phones, and we're born into a phone, and then these VR capabilities are even are progressively getting better and better, and then we're going to introduce like things like actual reality, so AR. We have a completely different generation of people that are emerging into the space. So I can't really say whether if it's going to make much business sense of hypercars in the future, let's say in the long future. But for now, they still do, which I'm still happy about. But as these digital consumerism grows and our experience with them gets progressively better and better, in the future, you'll probably be able to feel the environment in the virtual reality space, right? So they're already developing all these like neural sensors and everything that you can apply onto your body or whatever. And Elon's doing a Neuralink chip, for God's sake, right? So we have all of this impending digitization, this technicity that's coming in and almost somewhat replacing some of the humanness of us. So we've got to be careful, I think, in that regard. But to answer your question, maybe things that are just dedicated, that are handmade or dedicated to handmade products. So everything from a hand beaten sort of body on the outside, and the upholstery is all hand stitched, and the metal work inside it's all handmade. Maybe we'll still see, it'll be a huge premium.
I'm wondering, Joe, if that's actually going to be important in the future, because like you said, 4 or 5 generations ahead, we have to kind of shift our way of, or our perspective of seeing what, for example, luxury is for, our great grandchildren. Luxury might be, products that are being recycled as a luxury product, for example. You wouldn't today really consider plastic or recycled plastic as a luxury material, but the shift might be towards thinking that you're actually bringing something, good back to the world, and that is viewed as luxury more. And killing cows to get the leather and the hide for your seats is probably not a luxury anymore.
That's absolutely a great, and I can see that in myself now. These days I'm kind of like environmentally aware, let's say, and not to leave such a big carbon footprint with myself. Try to recycle as many things as I can, or get things that are ethically done better. So yeah, we and this kind of it's a process of humanity. We're definitely gonna come into this cycle where people will feel accountable for their existence, especially here on this planet. We can say these things like with the movement of veganism, for example. There's in the last decade there's a massive movement on this, and that all ties in with this idea of sustainable luxury. Right?
This whole shift towards not owning your own car and using, borrowing your car almost, or using mass transport. Although with the pandemic, we're starting to see that people don't like mass transport too much either. Where's it all going? I would love to be here in 50 years and 100 years and still see.
Yeah, I'm sure you will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, I think there is definitely a great reset happening in our kind of overview on these things at the moment. Like you said, for me, I definitely know that autonomy is going to come because I've seen the kind of like the proposals, the budget, the insane amount of money that's been pouring into it. I've been in all kinds of these meetings. So I know that they're laying infrastructure on ground and also in space. So we've got tons of satellites now going up, right? And the introduction of 5G, even though it's been around, but it's not really fully at its force yet. 5G has so much more other capabilities, and then we have like all the investments that went into AI and the autonomous algorithms. So all of these things, you can see that the person really. Let's fast forward ourselves into the future. If this capitalist style society remains, and all we do is consume, the car is a perfect place to do that. You take away the attention, you take away the driving attention from the driver. You make him watch a bunch of Netflix and a bunch of ads, maybe go on Amazon, consume, buy more things, watch more things, maybe, and this is going to be likely in every single, autonomous vehicle, is to enable more consumption and enable more time. So I think I did a research looking at, I don't know how many billions of hours compounded for every individual that can be capitalized. So if you think like, oh, we're talking in the billions of hours per year, I think of how many people, and this is just people stuck in traffic. Now, if you think, oh, wow, we can, the big tech guys, we're like, oh, we're going to take advantage of this. Like we want people to keep buying stuff and, support the economy and consume. So being in a car, it's perfect. A lot of people in the US waste, I don't know how many hours a day getting to work and back. And if you don't have to drive, you're focused on something else, you're gonna, you're like, that person is likely gonna, buy something or watch something or be influenced by some ads that he will later buy it as well. Or, he or she will later then, oh, I will buy this because they saw it in the ad early in the car. So yeah, we're definitely looking towards this way for sure.
Reminds me of something very interesting that I thought was very crazy the first time I heard it, but now, a couple years later, it starts to make a lot of sense. Is what you were just saying on public transport and even taxis. They could eventually become free to the consumer in the future simply through advertising. The advertising is put on the inside of the taxi, for example. You get bombarded with, the trip is more than paid for by the advertising from the companies that advertise inside the vehicle. So basically, you're just supporting that, and your trip is free.
You can take that as a positive, especially with these, like, maybe micro buses or, these shuttle buses that are autonomous, and maybe some pods in the future.
Yeah, those exist already, actually. Those
Yeah,
independent shuttle systems, basically, that take you from A to B,
Yeah, and I think what's lacking is definitely in the Western side of the world, we're lacking the ground infrastructure for this. So, we can't adapt these things in the UK, for example. It's, our roads are a mess. They don't even paint the lines. It takes forever for things to get done. Our roads are very narrow. But for places, for these concepts to exist, they have to be led in places such as China, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, those areas over there, where they have this brand new, beautiful foundation. They can do whatever they want. It's digitized, it's new, it's fresh, it's modular. They can upgrade it very, very easily. And that's where we're going to see where a lot of these products are going to be in its first existence, for example.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, they start with a clean slate, especially countries like Saudi Arabia and China. They can start without any set systems in place. They can basically start to do whatever they want. And Saudi Arabia is doing a great job. They're exploring the future already, is creating from scratch a future city, technology, incorporating future developments in today, bringing it to the consumer today. That's amazing. I think there's a lot of potential for designers to work. As a car designer, you can pretty much design anything. If you're a good one, you can. If you do the interior and the exterior, you're pretty much experienced at designing furniture, graphics, products, whatever. Because face it, a car is pretty much a culmination of a lot of different products. But yeah, that's quite cool.
Yeah, definitely. We as designers definitely have a lot of responsibilities in the car, and like you say, a lot of those skills can be transferable. And if you're willing to take the time as well to study economics, finances, and business, then you can gain an even more clarity.
Is that what you're doing? Preparing yourself for that?
Yeah, I've been doing it for a few years now. So
That's good.
Because having that inside sort of information to be able to, initially to look at the cost price of everything and kind of the development price of everything, and have these on my table and be able to look through it and, okay. And, this influences then how then I can design, say, a different element. It's like, oh, God, we can't do it like that because it's going to cost us this much. So we're going to have to find a different way where we can get, 80% of the result, but, a fraction of the price. So once you start thinking like this, your product is more efficient. It's definitely been optimized. The company is then sustainable. It can generate revenue and profit at the same time. So that means that it can grow. So, what I see a lot with, these kind of Instagram designs these days that don't really understand all of these things. And I think now is a really good time for young designers to look into the space and really understand to what extent you are designing. Because if this is going to take 2.5 million to make, you're gonna be bankrupt, bro. Like, don't even bother.
It's kind of hard to think, how am I going to design a car of the future when it's changing so quick now? And these young designers that I hear are kind of unsure about their future in design. Should they stick with it? Should they just become visioneers instead of designers? What can you suggest to a young budding guy who wants to become a designer?
I think, I mean, in the case of, let's say, automotive design, you're already invested a lot of energy, let's say, into a massive skill set, right? You gotta know how to do 3D modeling. You gotta know how to sketch. You gotta know how to visualize. You gotta know how to do all kinds of things. And you apply your own taste to that afterwards. So you can style it. So I always say there's a difference. Like, do you want to be a stylist or do you want to be a designer? These are two different things. For me, especially, it's like, I can have 100 stylists, but none of them are designers, because like none of their things are going to work. They cannot be manufactured at the moment. It's going to take too much money. You're going to bankrupt my company, for example. So I would say invest in the economics of how things are actually made. Talk to many people, or connect to as many people as possible to understand the same simple things like tooling processes. Okay, can you actually make a mold out of this and actually make it a body panel? And can you actually make it perform? And can you actually make it strong enough so that it's not going to wither away in 2 years? And there's a lot of avenues in which, once you start developing this deeper understanding towards why something is made and what does it do and its impact on its environment or the people or society, I think you then begin to see many more paths that you can deviate from. Not from being an automotive designer, you can do some other things with it. And I think having the ability to visualize and create, I think, is one of the designer's greatest tools. Really, we can envision like almost anything. And if you have the guts and balls to do it, I would say do it, because you have one of the greatest tools that are given to a human being.
It's a lot more than just making a pretty picture. It really is. It's knowing the whole business inside and out, which you'll learn along the way as a designer. Obviously, they don't teach a lot of this in school or in university, but it is placing a lot more responsibility on designers now more than ever, because it is, economics come into the question, feasibility comes into the question. But I don't think we should ever lose that childlike fascination with creating something that seems impossible to most people, and then working to making it real, to making it actually show you that was only impossible before you did it. And when you did it, it suddenly lost that edge of impossibility.
Yeah.
Joe, if I had to ask you, just out of total curiosity, what is, no pressure, just if you had one car in the history of car design and one product in the history of product design, which ones would you choose?
Actually, you know what? I would go for what's it called? If I were to get an E-type, it would be that, I don't know, I remember seeing one in chrome. I forgot the name of it now. It's a hardtop.
That was the Superlight.
The Superlight, yeah?
Yeah, they made very few. I mean, that's an amazing car.
And to answer your product question, I would definitely have to go with pen or pencil. I mean, yeah, it's definitely my favorite thing. It's like, if we were to be, or a stick, something that you can, use, right? So it's really the only product out there that allows us to immediately create something and to be able to communicate our idea with somebody else.
Well, that just goes to show you how you're wired, Joe, because a lot of people say they can't draw worth you know what. So stick won't mean much to them, or a pen, but definitely shows your designer side.
Well, it's because of, I don't know, it's always been like just a buddy, right? It's just always there with you. And, it's just a part of us, right? Growing up as well, it's always been there.
Can you see that?
Been with us the longest.
Exactly, yeah.
Extension, it's probably growing into my fingers. I can't let go of it. It's always amazing to talk to the new generation. Is always inspiring. And
yeah, you've kind of just always been in, we've kind of like just been entangled all this way through. You always somehow find ourselves back in each other's lives.
Well, it's a small world, Joe. It's not that. I mean, for us, what we do isn't really that big.
It is for sure.
Yeah, no, good times. I remember all the fun we had after work too.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, because we stayed up. Yeah, when everyone went home, we just stay there chilling and doing some more projects.
Yeah, we were there. We used to close the studio and open it pretty much, didn't we?
And yeah, we used to sneak off and look at the P1 every now and then, and its enclosure and its in this little cave.
Where not everybody, not even a lot of McLaren engineers got to see what they were working on.
I was so grateful for those times. It was just so fun. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably say that as another advice as well. I think in my experiences, just have fun with what you're doing. I mean, if you feel like you're forced to do it, don't do it, seriously. And if you feel like you're going to learn from being forced to do it, then do it, but don't do it in a, say, creative position. It's really detrimental. It really, I suffered a lot of health problems from that. But you get to know where your limits are.
Absolutely. I agree with that. As a creative person, you've got your heart on your sleeve most of the time, and you take criticism really, really, really hard. You're such a sensitive creature, I think, when you're wired up like that anything can upset you, and it really touches on your creativity. It affects it a lot. So a lot of designers will do their best work when they're down and out. When they're kind of depressed, they'll do great work. Other guys will do their best work when they're feeling good. So it's kind of it's a touchy subject, but a lot of pressure, I think, in the field of design, and a lot of people can take it and then they suddenly explode, and then they have to take a break and balance themselves out and go back at it. But
it is a crazy cycle. And you're exactly right. People are not exposed to just how much hard work has been gone into developing of these things, and they just really see it as face value. But then there's like 10, 20 engineers who are working on this damn flap, that had to create the best aerodynamic performance, and then you have the light guys like, oh, we have to make this part and it has to shine out this way so people can see, it meets all the regulatory requirements. People don't see this, and I think in the future it'd be nice for design studios to maybe open up the transparency in what they're doing, and engage with the public with this, like, hey guys, we have some sketches, which one do you want to go for, A, B, or C? Have a vote, pick A, and then just do the entire development process and create a channel where people can understand just how much is involved into doing so. It's a spaceship. It really is a spaceship. The best of electronics, the best of the materials, the best of engineering, the longevity of it, the safety, all of these things. And this car has to go, our cars have to go like 200 miles an hour or something, right? And all of these things, it's not easy.
No, it's been absolutely awesome, and so thankful that you could make it on, and really happy that you're the first guy that we're interviewing, and having what do you even call it? Yeah, it's not an interview. It's just a great chit chat, kind of designer to designer thing, and it's always fun to dig in a little bit. But more than anything, it's just been fun to touch base.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it was really good to speak to you and see you again. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, thanks to your team as well.
I'll let them know. I'll pass that on for sure.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe. Stay in touch, man.
Yeah, you too. Take
Good.
care.
You too. Thanks. Bye.